Hi there everyone. For today's video we're getting into a follow-up from an in-class assignment. This stemmed from our kind of first week in ArcGIS and specifically ArcPRO. You can see in front of you I have Blackboard open for the course that I'm teaching currently. On Tuesday of the week we try to go through some data download from Little Rock, selecting out some of the temporal data, then separating by year, drilling down into murder, and then also downloading the LRPD district shapefile, so the boundary file. So we wanted to look at just yearly homicide murder in Little Rock based on the districts based for policing itself. With that, more so how to get to a final map creation, and some of the must-haves being a title, legend, north arrow, scale bar, a data source, the creator, and affiliation. Had a couple issues within the lab itself, so I ended up creating a subset of data that you can just download for 3 years of homicide data along with the boundary file. As I go through this, I'm going to add in a bit of file management. I'm going to have some other videos I'm going to post on general file management. I think it's incredibly important the more you dive into spatial data, especially in ArcGIS. I have folders on top of subfolders galore just so I can keep it a bit more organized. So I'm going to go through a simple way for today's exercise to download how to extract all, unzip, that kind of thing. But to start off, I'm going to go ahead and download this data. So if I just click on it, it's going to download automatically, and I have it open in Google Chrome. If you're not used to Google Chrome, if you go into your options and advanced options, you can specify Google Chrome to prompt you every time it downloads so it doesn't go directly to your downloads folder. You can also change where it goes to from the start. So I'm just going to do this to my desktop, and I'm just going to name it week 7. I'm going to keep it the same for now. With this, it's going to pop up on my other screen, I imagine. So I'm going to minimize this and bring my folder over. And if you're not familiar with a zipped folder, oftentimes people usually have, especially on campus computers, they have 7-zip. So 7-zip's a free program that allows you to compress, extract a lot of files. It's a good one-stop shop to get used to. Depending on your computer, you can also just right-click. Of course, mine's going to take a hot second to even give me the options for it. There we go. So I can extract all, or if you only have the 7-zip options, you can extract files here directly to the desktop, or you can specify where you want to save them to. So for me, I want to go ahead and just extract files here. It's going to open a folder for me, and I'm just going to have to pull that back over onto this screen. So now when I double click it, you'll see inside of it I have police districts, which all of these files create or make up the police districts itself. Keep in mind the DBF is essentially your attribute table, what you could open up in Excel if you wanted to and see the table data within it. If I go back, we have 3 different homicide layers itself for 2021, 2020, and 2019. But for now, we know where the data are located, so we can direct ArcPRO to go find this data and bring it into ArcPRO for us. I went ahead and already opened ArcPRO. If you're on a campus computer at home, you probably don't have a recent projects folder. If you do, you only have a couple options. For now, to get in the habit of, I'm just going to start a new project folder, map itself. So I'm going to label this, since we're doing Little Rock Homicide, so Little Rock Homicide class. And you can see I get in the habit just with working with spatial data and data sets that don't like spaces within a file name. I use a lot of underscores in mine. Again, I'm going to save this to the actual week 7 folder that I just extracted itself, just so I know where it's being saved. So I'm going to pull this back over on this side and scroll down, and I have week 7. And I'm just going to save it in here and hit OK. You can see here it just updates to desktop and week 7 folder, and the project itself is going to be like this name, and I have the checkbox for a new folder. Click OK, and depending on the computer you're on, this can take a minute or two to actually boot up and get all the information ready, because you're also opening a map layer for it. So I'm going to hit pause here just for the sake of I'm not sure how long my computer is going to take. It's hit and miss even on my end. Alright, that ended up taking just under 30 seconds. So you can see that it is still opening up the new map. Of course, when I hit unpause, it starts going like this, and it starts flashing like it's having an issue opening up. But here we go. It's loading the map for us. Not shockingly, most of my work is typically done on Arkansas, so it is zoomed in already on Arkansas itself. But if I zoom out based on the map that I already have going on here, it has the entire world globe for you. But we're in Arkansas and we're going to be working in Little Rock. So if you wanted to change these base maps, you can. So right now it's just showing topographical and hill shade. But for those of you who first time or still getting used to Esri and ArcPRO, if I click on the map tab at the top, and this is what I essentially refer to as like kind of your home screen or home options. If you go into your base map options, you have a lot of options or themes within it. Similar to in Excel when you had different schemes, you could change the color to it. You have different options here as well. If you want to go dark scale, and as you can see my ArcPRO is already that way, you have that option to it and you can turn on and off different ones. You don't have to have anything. Keep in mind whatever looks best at the end. But for now, I'm going to keep it on and go forward. So now, and I'm going to get rid of this just so we have to work through it together. The first step is we know where the data is located, but we want to add it to our map. So at the top here, you have Add Data. And this is where you're just directing ArcPRO to go find the data that you were working with. I was just working on some Fayetteville stuff, so I'm going to come back now, go to my desktop. The folder's name is Week 7. Go down here, and first I'm going to bring in our boundary file. So this is what's going to be the boundary of Little Rock, specifically the police districts that are within it. So I'm going to click OK, and that's going to add it to the map for us. And luckily it already has a spatial reference to it, so it's going to zoom into this layer for us, and it's going to put it properly in Little Rock. Because of that, it has lat long, the WGS, World Geographic System, for us. So you can see here, each one of these little boundaries areas is a different police district in Little Rock. We'll get to it here in a minute of how to change some of the symbology of it, how it is viewed in here. But first, let's get all the data in here and then we can mess with the cosmetics. Now again, we just did the police district, so we really just want to go up one folder. So I can click on Week 7, or you can also hit the up arrow here. Week 7, Homicide, and I'm going to click on 2019, hold down Shift to 2021. So this is going to add all three of them at the same time. If you already inserted one, you can always go back and add the other ones. But now you see we have all 3 years here. I'm going to uncheck these over here. So get in the habit, this is truly your drawing order on the table of contents over here. So if you end up moving over to another tab within it, you can always come back to see what the drawing order is. I like to see the source every now and then to remember where the data is being saved to, where it's drawing from. With that, when I say the drawing order, so say I turned on Homicide 2021. If I had click and pull this above the homicide layers, this is what's going to be on top. So it's bringing it to the front of the map itself. Obviously, it hides those homicide points that we want to see, so I want to drag and click that down. Keep in mind that you have to have it checked to be seen and in the correct drawing order to make sure it's showing what you want. But alright, let's start off with, we have police districts highlighted itself. So when I say the DBF is like the attribute table, if we went into Excel and open the DBF part to this file, you'll see what's referred to in ArcPRO or Esri products as the attribute table down here, and it's loading that information for us. You can see this one does not have a lot. It has the name itself, so this is our police district. So if I click and highlight a couple of these, it'll also highlight in our map. So I just got lucky here. This is most of the Northwest division of Little Rock. But you can see if I just click on one, it will highlight just one for us, so we can see specific districts within. The key part to remember here is if you have one highlighted and it's highlighted in this blue, before you do anything else, go up here and just hit clear. That takes away the selection for it, just getting the habit of that. But you can see overall we have 27 different police districts in Little Rock. Alright, but now let's get back to the symbology side. So since I have this one highlighted, if I come up to appearance, and I just click symbology, it's going to then open in the pane on the right hand side symbology for us. It's a single symbol. When I say that, there's no value that I want to have shown because of that. It's truly just a boundary outline that I want to have on the map so we have some reference. Because of that, I want to go into the color scheme. There we go. I double click it, and I just want a simple outline. So you can have a couple options here with a black outline itself. Give it a second to load and make the change for us. There we go. It took a bit longer than I thought. But again, we have that here, and we can now see the outlines of the districts, but more importantly, the outlines of Little Rock as a whole. If you wanted to go in and change the colors of some of these specific properties or the districts themselves, if you click on properties, it gives you more options. Here you can see the outline color, the width of it, so you can mess with all of that based on what you want it to appear for. That's kind of the cosmetics making a map look pretty, which I oftentimes say, but that's what it comes down to. Now, it might be important, since we have 3 different years of homicide data, you could make them all the same color like they already currently are, or if you want to show some type of variation itself, you can change them. So if I similar click on the symbol here, it's going to update the pane for this Homicide 2019 layer. So for this one, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. You have a lot of options in here in terms of what you can put on it. I will recommend that when you search, go ahead and change it to all styles. And if I typed in crime here, ArcPRO, ArcMap is oftentimes used by crime analysts within law enforcement agencies and intel analysts world. You have crime options within it, some symbols that you could use for it. For now, I'm just going to use a couple different circles, different colors to kind of get at the point of this exercise. So if I click on the black circle, you can see where they're popping up here. I want to actually change the color, so I'm going to go into properties. The color itself, I'm going to start with red for this. I'm going to make them a bit smaller at 8 point. Key part is hit apply at the bottom and we're good to go. Now you can see, since Homicide 2019's above police districts, you can see when one of those points based on the size overlaps that boundary, the red part shows. This is going to happen for the same of 2020 and 2021, so there's a potential that some of these points are going to occur in the same or similar area, so we'll lose some sight of them. Again, pin map to be expected. This isn't a density map or anything like that. But now when we put 2020 up there, I want to change this to a circle again. So I'm going to start with that black one again, come over to properties, change the color, and this time I'm just going to go, let's do a blue. Going to keep it at 8 point, hit apply. So now we know where 2019 and 2020 are. Lastly, if I turn on 2021, click these, come back to gallery at the top over here, start with that same black circle. Again, you can change it how you want. I'm just going through examples of this. Come back to properties. I'm going to change this color to, let's do kind of an orange color. There we go. So you can kind of see some clusters just looking at the map itself. These aren't surprising if you've paid attention or watched any of the other videos that I've done on Little Rock. You can see Interstate I-630, which most crime, especially violence, occurs south of it. And you can see that shows with homicide here. But alright, we have our police districts. We have our homicide data for each year represented in a different color. With that, we kind of want to create a final layout map that we can work with and potentially send as a PDF, take a PNG of, send it to somebody else that they can have a reference for. When we get to that point, we can come up to Insert, we can go to New Layout. Now keep in mind, since Little Rock is much more east-west, when we come to Layout, this refers to the paper size itself. So with that, I know since Little Rock is more east to west, it makes sense to have a landscape option with that. So when I add that, it's going to add a tab at the top here next to map. That's going to be layout. So with it, I have my map that has all my original data in it. And now I have my layout view. You have different options. I get in the habit of just now using rectangle mostly. So I click that, click the top left corner, drag it down to the bottom right. Give it a second to load the information in it. And it's going to pull up the map frame from your prior one. This way, give it a bit of time, it'll pull up for you. Sorry about that, I misspoke. To make it a bit easier on all of us for right now, just click default extent, so that's going to bring up everything that we have on that map itself. Still drag and click, and you can see this is what I said, brings up everything we have. It brings up everything we have in our map over here, the same image of. The cool part is, if you right click on our police district, since we know that's our boundary file, I'm going to right click and hit zoom to layer, and it's going to go to that extent where it makes that the focus of our map here. So we're in pretty good shape. Now, if you remember, and I'll pull up Blackboard again, if I come back to our week 7 in ArcPRO, what we want to get into is adding a title, a legend, north arrow, scale bar, our data source, creator, and affiliation is kind of a text box that we'll do at the bottom, but we know what we're supposed to be working with now. So to make it a bit easier, when you're already in layout view, you can already see at the top you have options. You see the north arrow, scale bar, and some text boxes you can add to it. So get in the habit to yourself, find a north arrow you like, you can play around with them. I have my kind of go-to one that I use all the time. But now it comes to the placement part of where you're putting some of these to where you can make them legible and see them. Again, size does matter, so please don't make huge north arrows that end up taking the perspective or focus off of the map itself. So with that, you can make them a bit smaller and just have them kind of tucked away to where if the viewer or reader wants to know, the information is here for you. With that scale bar, you have the option as well. You have different ones in it. Just going to add one. For the scale bar, it's going to ask you to draw a rectangle of kind of the size you want it. And it's going to draw for you. If you want to make it smaller, you can just pull and make it larger if you want based on that. Similar depending on your level of, if you move it, always Control Z, undo still works in ArcPRO. If you want to change the font, so since I already had the element up, so say I had that closed and you couldn't see any of this over here. Say I wanted to change this font style. If I right click on it and hit properties, you can see that it comes over here and I want to go into text symbol. And it will give me, in a second, all of the text fields if I want to change the font style. Get in the habit to match your fonts because we'll have a title, we'll have a couple text boxes, and we'll also have a legend. So we just want to be consistent in what we're displaying there. And again, in class we had headaches with the speed of the program. My computer's being a bit slower today just because I have Kaltura recording this at the same time. But if we hit the drop down on appearance, I'm going to go to traditional and the boring Times New Roman and hit OK. And again, make sure to hit apply at the bottom here. And I'm just wanting it for my own purposes to be at a solid number, a whole number. So I have it at 6. So we have a north arrow, we have our scale bar. Next up we need a legend, a title, and kind of our personal information. So to start off, I'm just going to put a rectangle text box. I'm going to put it along the top here. I'm going to make it the size of that so when I type in it, I can actually change what the title is, but the background, and also the positioning of it. So you can see it's rotating around, but you also have the text field over here to where this is Homicide in Little Rock, Arkansas from 2019 through 2021. With that, you have different options with your display. If you want to make an outline of the text box itself, the background color. I want a background color so this sticks out. You can kind of see where it's positioned up here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a background of a lighter gray so we can see that this is going to separate it a bit more from it. I'm going to add a simple border of just a black line. Again, a little separator from the title to the map itself. I don't want a shadow, so we're okay there. Let's see, we have that. And then text symbol. This is where we can change the size of our font. Let's see what it looks like as I go up. If you click apply, you can kind of see as it sizes up what it looks like. Position wise, I want it to be centered. hit apply, and it will update that way for you as well. For now, this is a good start. We'll get into the spacing of if you want to draw it down a bit more, but for now, that's a good basis to go from. Again, you can always make that a bit smaller to where the gap in between doesn't look as large for it. Alright, so we have a title, we have a north arrow, we have a scale bar. Let's get into a legend. So you have the option up here of legend. If you go ahead and click on it, and then draw a rectangle. This is about the area where I want it. You can see here that it's going to give you some options similar to everything else we've worked through so far. Now there's a couple things that you might look at and wonder, well, I don't like how that looks. So for legend, if we come back and we just start at the beginning, or say this format didn't pop up, if you right click on it again, hit properties, it's going to pull up for you. First off, I want this to say that it is a legend. So if you see this checkbox and it's not checked, show that this is legend. You can see that shifts that here for us. Again, I'm going to want a background color similar to my title, so this stands out a bit more. So I'm going to have an outline that's black, and then a background color that is, I think that's the same, yeah, shade. The other part I want to get into though is also the text size and the text itself, so I want to make sure this is Times New Roman, which I did not do for the title itself, so we'll have to update that here in a second. Have this updated, but I'm also going to change the font size to be a bit larger just so it's easier to read for us. So we're good there. But now when you look at this, you might see, well, crap, you have underscores, you have police districts that need a space. Keep in mind how we save them, we can change how that appears in the map layer itself. So if I double click on any one of these, or triple click, or if it ever lets me open it, there we go. I can change the name of it, and as I change the name over here in our table of contents, it changes it in our legend for us. Later in the semester, we'll get into converting it to graphics to where after you do that, you can't change any of this information without making a new legend. But that's much more when you're at the truly last points for cosmetics and everything with that. Police districts, LRPD, and I need to add a space between there. So we have that going there. So we're good to go with our legend. We have our title. I'm going to come back to the title and go into our text so I can update this to Times New Roman. Hit apply. There we go. So the last little bit that we need is our name, so the creator, the data source, which was the Little Rock Online Data Portal itself, and our affiliation, which is the University of Arkansas. So again, I'm going to add a text box down here. I typically put this information in the lower corners since Esri has this information in here, and this is associated with our topographical map in Hillside. I'm going to leave that as is. So for creator, I have my name, affiliation. I'm going to put my lab, Casdall, and data source, Little Rock Data Portal. Now you could, if you have it, you could insert the link, the web address to it. That is fine and understandable. I typically do that myself if that's available. Now you can, since this isn't as vital information, if you don't want to change the background color, you don't have to. Just make sure you have your information on it. Take ownership of it. So when this is distributed, we know who did make it. If you want to have your contact information, you can do that as well. But to stay constant, we're just going to make sure this is also Times New Roman. It's pulling up the wrong one for me. There we go. Times New Roman. I'm actually going to make this even smaller font just so it's tucked away. There we go. So it's 8-point font in the lower corner. We're good to go. Now you might wonder, well, could I put a background color on the north arrow scale bar? Yeah, you can insert some rectangles and you can add a background to it. That is all fine, similar to what we did before. Symbol, you go in just the color and the outline, so you can add those in. For the purposes of today, I'm okay with this. If you want to take these layers off, if you uncheck them, you can see this shifts how the map looks. You might just like the topographic map, not so much the hill shade. Again, you can change these base layers themselves. If you come back into your map and change what your base map looks like. I saw some cool ones made by students with the dark color schemes. I'm always game for that. But when you do that, it does update. So think about your color scheme and what you're presenting on. Make it easy for the person to interpret and see. So keep the audience in mind when you're making this. Now, if you're happy with your map, of course, you can spend hours into the cosmetics and the layout design. This should take time. If you're thinking that it's your first time, you're happy with it, that's great. I'd also say have someone else take just a look at it if they have any recommendations, be it color, layout, design, where things are located, the size, proportionality, everything like that does have an effect on it. This is just getting your feet wet in terms of when we go and progress through the semester. When I say I want a final map or a finished map, these are the features I want it to have. So I'll show you more tips and tricks as we get into more dynamic layouts, how to have things overlap, and have a lot of information, multiple layers, everything going on. It's where they can be complicated, but they're telling a story. So we want it to be coherent at the end of the day with that. Right now, this is a good start, and this is why we started this in class. So the next step would be saving this, distributing this. Obviously, you can use the snipping tool to where you can take a snip of this, save it as a PNG. You could do the same as a screenshot and save that and crop it down. If you also go up to share, you'll have the option up here to essentially print. So you can print this out. You can do a layout to save it as a PNG. You have a lot of options to do in it. But if I just click layout itself for the print part, for the printer name, make sure that you select the PDF option. If your computer is already hooked up to a printer, it's going to most likely give you that as the first option. For our purposes, we just want to print to PDF, which is truly just a PDF itself. So right now, mine went to Adobe because I don't have anything connected to this computer. Orientation-wise, I want this landscape, so make sure you select that, and you can see how this updates on the paper itself. So when it's portrait, it shrinks down for us. But for now, since we already selected this sheet to be 8.5 by 11, I want it to be the same like this. And as we scroll down, we can see output quality. I want the best versus fastest, so we're good to go there. And then print to file. You can say where you want to print it to. And again, I guess I need to check that. It's slowly taking its time. There we go. So again, make sure you specify for this project itself, week 7 folder, and Homicide PDF, Little Rock, week 7. And if you're good to go there, hit print. And this will go, and since this is our first week in Arc itself, you'll see that at the bottom that it's going. You want to see a green box pop up with a check mark in it. Everything went well. If you see a red box pop up, there's some type of error issue going on. If that does happen, it oftentimes generates an error code for you. Click on that. It will oftentimes open in, if you're connected to the internet, a code book where you can reference it. Also, there's a great online community for Esri and ArcPRO or ArcMap. So when you do that, other people have probably had the same issue. So if you look around, and that's where I say, I'm not an expert in anything other than probably how to Google an answer for what I'm looking for. You can see this is taking a little longer than I thought. That's probably also due to the best versus fast. But I still didn't think it would take this long. But if I come back to our folder, this is where it's going to print for us. So I'm going to just keep this up. And we'll see as this is done printing for us, it'll pop up in this folder at the same time. Since this is taking much longer than I thought just to save as a PDF, I'm going to hit pause real quick. So to be honest, that ended up just going and going and going. So I just came over, I clicked layout. It's going to give me the option to save it as a file type. And here I'm going to just save it as a JPEG at this point. It's a picture file. You can see it gives you multiple options in here. PNG and JPEG are pretty good. PDF is still another one. Stick to those three and you'll be in pretty good shape. Specify where I want to save it. So I'm going to hop over to desktop. Scroll down to the week 7 folder. And here, Little Rock, Homicide for 2019 through 2021. Best in here, you can go up in DPI depending on what you're trying to do. If you're submitting this somewhere else, they will likely have set DPI settings for you. For now, we're okay with everything else. Hit export, and it should pop up much quicker than an actual PDF. And there we go. So we have that popping up for us. And if I go ahead and open the picture file, give it a second. Let me see if it'll open on my other screen. It should pop up. There we are. You can see now it's just the JPEG version of this. Since this did take a bit longer, the snipping tool would have been just as quick, or if not quicker. Taking a screenshot, cropping it, right click, and save as. But now we do have a finished product that we can share with others, post, tweet, whatever you want to do with it. But we do have a final product. So when it comes to homework, when I ask for a final map with all of the features, keep in mind we want a title, a legend, scale bar, north arrow, our creator, which is me, affiliation, which is, for me, I put the lab data source, which is the Little Rock data portal. And the focus of the map itself is truly outlining the police districts that's specified in the legend. And then for each individual, your homicide point-wise or pin-wise on it has a different color associated with it. We'll get into other options into the future, but this is a good introduction to making a final map in ArcPRO. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks. Bye.